Yeah, let's start.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. At the outset, I'd like to give a small introduction about our college. And I first thank our secretary, Madam Mrs. Sumati Krishna Prasad, for helping us in organizing various programs. I'm thankful to our director, Dr. J. Manjula, for supporting us in all our endeavor. I welcome our principal for untiring efforts in uplifting the college and its academic achievements. Our college was started in the year 1952 by Sri G. V. Govindasamy Naidu for the empowerment of women from rural area. Many of our alumni are in various parts of the world, serving as doctors, auditors, and professionals. Our college has received autonomous status more than 30 years back. Fourth cycle of NAC accreditation is over and we received A+ grade. ISO 9001-2015 certified institution. Our founder was born on Onam Day, hence we celebrated 135th founder's birthday. Our founder was very much interested in Ramayanam, hence every year we celebrate Founders Day with Ramayanam discourse. Today's resource person, Prabhuji Paramakaruna Das Purushottam Goyal, is a graduate from IIT Roorkee and working as principal engineer at Intel in Portland, USA. He has been conducting free classes on Vedic scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam for the last 10 years. Earlier, the classes were held in person in Portland, but now they are offered online. He is conducting ongoing programs and anyone can join it at any time, and also standalone classes for every week and not in a series form. I am one such beneficiary of his classes. Today, he is going to address on relationship of teacher and student, Guru Sishya Sambandha, to strengthen the relationship between teachers and students. Now I call upon Ms. S. Bala Gopala Prachita, second BSc Mathematics, to welcome the gathering.
Good morning, one and all present here. Teachers are the role model to young generation. A teacher can inspire hope, ignite the imagination, and instill a love of learning. Wishing all my teachers a glorious and happy Teachers' Day in the joyful moment. I am S. Balagopala Prachita from the Department of Mathematics. I feel privileged to propose the welcome address for Teachers' Day celebration. I, on behalf of Sri GVG Visalachi College, welcome our chief guest, Mr. Paramakaruna Das, Principal Engineer of Intel in Portland, USA. Welcome, sir. We are grateful for your valuable time that we get to share with you. I would like to welcome our Secretary, Ma'am, Srimati Sumati Krishna Prasad, for uplifting our personality in all endeavors. It gives me great contentment to welcome our Director, Dr. J. Manjula, for the function. We take immense pleasure in welcoming our Principal, Dr. N. Rajeshwari, for her constant guidance. Her loving encouragement makes us always be confident in doing things. With a deep sense of appreciation, we welcome our Students' Union Advisor, Dr. N. Lakshmi, for her untiring efforts. I also extend our heartfelt gratitude in welcoming all our beloved teachers who are the heroes of today's function. The essence of fruit is always tested at the last, and we believe last will be the best ever. So I welcome all the students for making this function a grand success. Students across the country celebrate this day to respect and thank their teachers. They make us ideal citizens of country. Dear friends, let us respect our teachers for their support, care, and involvement in making every one of us a great personality. I heartily welcome you all again for this function. Thank you.
So now we can start your session, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I will share my screen and here we go. So here you can see a picture. So thank you first of all for. Can you hear me?
Sir, we are able to hear you.
Okay, very nice. So Thank you for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to speak on the occasion of Teachers' Day. And like you all thanked your teachers, I want to thank the teacher from whom I have learned most of what I'm going to speak. And that is Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, whose picture you can see here on the screen. So he is the one. So he was born in 1896 and he left this world in 1977. But he still lives among us through his books. And he has written a lot of books on Vedic Shastras, primarily the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And we all are his, maybe some are direct disciples, some are indirect disciples, as in the disciples of his disciples. And but all the learnings and everything that we have received is because of his grace, because of his writings and because of his teachings. So he is well known as the founder of ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known mainly in the Western world as the Hare Krishna movement. And his greatest gift has been the books that he has given, which contain the translations, commentaries of many Shastras like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So he is our Jagat Guru. Jagat Guru means the Guru of the entire world, because the entire world is in need of this spiritual knowledge. So I offer my gratitude and my most respectful homage to Srila Prabhupada, whose picture is shown here. So with that, I want to start the discussion today. And today's discussion is about Guru Shishya Sambandha, or teacher-student relationship. The word teacher does not do a lot of justice to the word guru. Guru is a much, much more encompassing and broad category than just a teacher. In some sense, it does convey the meaning, but guru can be anybody from whom we learn something useful. And of course, the first gurus as a child is born are the parents. And then when the child goes to a school, then there are gurus over there. And in the scriptures, especially in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is written that we can learn from anyone. Even we can learn from an animal. We can learn the act of love from an animal. Right outside our house, there is a small nest of birds, and we can see how the birds love and care for their young ones. So there is so much to learn from everywhere, and they are all our gurus. So the talk, or the topic of the talk, as I said, is Guru Shishya Sambandha. And in our scriptures, in our Shastras, there is one example of a great relationship between Guru and Shishya. And we all know that Shastra as Bhagavad Gita. And the whole Bhagavad Gita is nothing but a conversation between Guru and Shishya. So the Guru is none other than Lord Krishna, and Shishya is Arjuna. So it is the Bhagavad Gita is the perfect saga of a student and a teacher. So I thought I will speak on the characteristics or the nature of the relationship between Guru and Shishya through the eyes of Bhagavad Gita. And there is a lot to learn from the Bhagavad Gita. Even if some of you may not have 100% faith on the Bhagavad Gita, some of you may have faith in some other religious or scriptural book, still there can be a lot to be learned from the Bhagavad Gita about the nature of the relationship between Guru and Shishya. So the Bhagavad Gita is it shows the the nature of a perfect guru and a perfect shishya. What is a perfect guru, or who is a perfect guru, and who is a perfect shishya? So I see, or I heard from the introduction, there are so many gurus in the talk today, teachers, and there are so many students or shishyas, second year, third year students, as it was described, or even first year and other students. They are all shishya. So what is the meaning of being a good shishya, a perfect shishya? What is the meaning of being a perfect guru? So let us dive into that topic. So, as you all know, or as I'm sure many of you know, almost 100%, but at least I'm sure 90% of you know, that Bhagavad Gita is a part of Mahabharata. And the Bhagavad Gita starts when Arjun is about to start the Mahabharata war between the Pandavas and Kaurava army. And by certain arrangement of Lord Krishna, he decides guide Arjuna throughout the war by being his Sarathi. Sarathi means his driver, his charioteer. So he takes the position of a driver or chariot driver, as we know it in the modern language, driver, and Arjuna is the passenger. And in this case, usually the passenger gives directions to the driver. Let's go here. I want to go there. I want to go there. But in this case, Krishna is a driver or a sarathi, but he is also the driver of his mind. So in that sense, Guru is, or Lord Krishna is a guru, and he is driving, or he is adopting the position of a guru of Arjuna, and Arjuna is adopting the position of a shishya. We will see exactly in the verse or the shloka that happens. So the Bhagavad Gita starts with Arjuna's Vishad. Vishad means his disappointment, sadness, or lamentation, that Arjuna, after seeing his loved ones in the battle on the opposite side, especially two people whom he dearly loved, very loving people to Arjuna are Bhishma Dev, or whom we know more commonly as Bhishma Pitamaha, who is the grandfather of Arjuna, and his teacher Dronacharya. These two people are very dear to Arjun, and many others are also there. And of course, Arjun is, he likes the Kauravas also, even though Kauravas have done so many bad things towards Arjuna and the Pandavas. So that is the first characteristic of a good student. A good student has a clean heart, a very kind heart, even to those who have wronged them, who have done injustice towards them. They carry no ill feelings in their heart. And then he tells Lord Krishna that I don't want to fight this battle. And Lord Krishna is listening. So in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there are so many verses, 46 verses are there in the first chapter. And throughout that, Arjuna is speaking how and why he does not want to fight. And it continues in the second chapter. He continues to say, I don't want to fight. I don't want to kill my family members or my relatives, or in general, I don't want to kill people, because, their family will become orphaned. Their children will become orphaned. And he's very feeling a lot of compassion in his heart. But Lord Krishna does not say one word. He keeps quiet. He's just listening. So that shows another quality of a teacher. A teacher listens very carefully. Very carefully, a teacher is listening to his student as to what exactly is the emotion, not only the content of the question, but the emotion behind the question. The context behind the question also is something that the teacher gets as in, like, completely understands. The teacher is able to put himself in the student's shoes, as they say. So then comes a point in chapter 2, verse number 7. And I will show this verse in the Bhagavad Gita. So I will share my screen again. So this is a website where we can see the whole Bhagavad Gita is available online. And this website is called vedabase.io. So you can use this website, you can bookmark it, make a note of it, and you can read Bhagavad Gita and many other spiritual books at this website for free. So Bhagavad Gita is the first one. So we go into the Bhagavad Gita and chapter 2, verse number 7. Very, very famous verse. And here, Arjuna, after conveying to Lord Krishna that he does not want to fight, okay. So when he wants to convey to, after he has conveyed to Lord Krishna that he does not want to fight, he puts down his weapons. And he is very sad, almost to the point of crying. Imagine Arjuna, who is such a brave warrior, is saying this verse. So this is chapter 2, verse number 7, and I will read the verse and we will go through what it means. And we will see how the student behaves. What are the characteristics of a student? So this verse goes like this. Karpanya dosho pahata swabhavaha prichhami tvam dharma sammudha chetah yakshreyasan nishchitam bruhitan me shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. So what this verse means is that first characteristic of a student is that he accepts his shortcoming. He accepts wherever he is lacking. He is not in a mood that I know everything. That is the first characteristic or first quality of a student. And here Arjuna is accepting his karpanya dosha. Dosha means a flaw, a fault. And he's accepting his dosha, that he is karpanya. He is lacking all the knowledge at this point. In that moment of truth, when he has to fight the war, all the knowledge has gone away and he's feeling very, very empty. So that is the first thing. And the second thing is that he asks the teacher, goes and presents his dilemma to the teacher. Prichhami tvam. Prichhami means I'm asking you. And he's asking what? Tvam dharma sammudha chetah. That I don't know what is my dharma. I am confused about my dharma. Please tell me what is the right dharma. Should I fight or should I not fight? So like that, he's inquiring, he's presenting an inquiry to the teacher. And then the next point is that the student is determined to get the answer. There is a lot of determination. He is really, really interested in the answer. So he says, Yat shreya syan nishchitam bruhitan me. Nishchit. Nishchit means tell me definitely. I want the precise, perfect answer. Nishchit answer. So he is asking for a perfect answer. So he's very interested in the answer. And that is also when teacher is inclined to give answers to the student when he sees a very interested student. And finally, he accepts the position of a student. Shishyaste aham. Clearly, Arjuna is saying, I am your shishya. Shishyaste aham. And what is the duty of a shishya? To sit on top of the head of the teacher? No, the student never sits on top of the head. He never considers himself to be higher than the teacher. He says, Shadhi mam tvam prapannam. Prapanna means to surrender, to submit to the teacher. Shadhi mam, please teach me, please instruct me. I am your shishya. So shishya accepts the relationship. So there has to be an acceptance from both sides, from the teacher's side and the student's side of that relationship. Otherwise, the relationship will not fructify. The teacher has to accept the student, and teacher accepts qualified students usually. Therefore, in any college, there is always a qualification test or some kind of entrance exam, or you have to fill up some form. Somebody reads the form and says, okay, is this student qualified to attend the college or not? So in that sense, the student is asking the college, the teacher, please accept me. Shishyaste aham shadhimam. And he's submitting to the teacher, tvam prapannam. So this should be the mood of the student. So teacher accepts the student, student accepts the teacher. Then we move on further in the Bhagavad Gita, a couple of verses, and we see the mood of the teacher. And we will go to the 10th verse in the same second chapter. This is the verse just before Lord Krishna starts speaking the Bhagavad Gita, which is the knowledge part of the Bhagavad Gita. So here we can see the mood of Lord Krishna, and what is described here is Tamuvacha Rishikeshaha Prahasanneva Bharata. Prahasan means he's smiling. Prahas. We say prahas. Prahas means to smile or to laugh. So this verse, the translation of this verse is, O descendant of Bharata, which is Arjuna, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. So here we see another quality of the teacher. The teacher, so when Arjuna was speaking like this, I don't want to fight and this and that, he was very sad. Krishna was not at all sad. He was smiling because he was very confident. Bhagwan Krishna knew exactly what is Arjuna's problem. So we see the teacher is an expert. He can clearly see through the students' problems. He can clearly understand what is the student's problems, and he is very kind and compassionate. We see that Lord Krishna is not angry, or he is not dismissive. He doesn't dismiss the student. Oh, you don't know the answer, go away. I don't have time to tell you the answer, or anything like that. So Lord Krishna is very kind. He is very tolerant. He is very patient with his students. He is not in a hurry. He, even though they are in the middle of the battle, he sits down and explains the whole Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So that is another great quality of a teacher we see, which is being an expert, being able to clearly understand the student's position or his emotions, being very kind and confident. So these are the qualities of a teacher as well. Then we go back to some of the qualities of a student. And this time we will see, so we saw the qualities of a student. We saw the qualities of a teacher. Now we will see the qualities that a teacher expects in a student. Okay, so from a teacher's standpoint, how does he like the ideal student to be? And then for that, we will go a little bit further into Bhagavad Gita, into chapter 4, we will make a jump and go to verse number 3 in the Bhagavad Gita. And here we get a glimpse of what the teacher expects in the student. And I'm sure there are so many teachers here, you will know instantly what you expect in a student. In a very simple way, or in very simple terms, a teacher wants, or he likes, serious students, or serious, not like serious as in like who never laugh, not that kind of serious, but sincere, interested students who want to learn. And so here Arjuna is asking some questions to Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna is giving this answer. So let us see this particular verse, 3rd verse, 4th chapter, and we will see a beautiful aspect of what the teacher expects in a student. So this verse goes like this. Sa evayam maya tedya yogah proktah puratanaha bhakto asi me sakha cheti rahasyam hi etad uttamam. So the translation is, so Arjuna has asked some question, and to that Lord Krishna is explaining that this is a very ancient science of the relationship of the Supreme. So he has asked the question about something about this nature of this Bhagavad Gita, etc. But he's saying, today I am telling you this because, why am I telling you the Bhagavad Gita? That is the main point. Because Bhakto asi me sakha cheti, because you are my bhakta. The translation, English translation is, you are my devotee. That's number one. Bhakto asi ma sakha cheti, me sakha cheti. You are my bhakta. So a teacher expects devotion from the student. A very, very devotion means who is very interested in the subject. Not only in the subject, but he is very interested in the teacher as well. At the highest levels, there is no difference between the teacher and the subject. At the highest levels, the teacher and the subject become one. The teacher, the perfect teacher, is the embodiment of the subject. The teacher is a walking subject. It's like if Einstein comes in the room, everybody will see physics or whatever, in the room. They won't see him as a person, or whether he likes to eat idli or sambar or dosa. That's not what they will see. They will see physics. He's like a walking personification, embodiment of the subject. That is the perfect teacher, who is the embodiment of the subject itself. So the student is devoted not only to the subject, but to the teacher, and teacher likes that. So he says, Bhakto asi me sakha cheti. And Bhakto asi, that's the first one. And the second one is sakha cheti. Sakha means friend, sakha. So the teacher expects friendliness from the student. And here friendliness does not mean like a peer level, like an equal, not like that, but a friendly mood. Friendly mood means not hostile, not antagonistic. These days we see, students are very, they think themselves to be like, more knowledgeable than the teacher. They sometimes disrespect the teacher. All those things should not be there. It should be a friendly atmosphere, a very cordial atmosphere, a cordial relationship. And that is what Lord Krishna is saying, that you are my bhakta and you are my sakha. And that is why I will speak this rahasya. Then when he sees this qualities in the student, the teacher is willing to give everything. All the secrets teacher will reveal. That's why Lord Krishna says that rahasyam hi etad uttamam, the topmost secret I will reveal to you. So teacher then does not keep anything within him. He gives everything to the student. So this is another thing that we learn from this part of the Bhagavad Gita. Now you may ask the question, okay, this is how the teacher expects the student to approach. What is the duty of the student? How should the student approach? What are some of the things that the student should do to the teacher, towards the teacher? There is another shloka we will go and we will see what that says. This is the 4th chapter, 34th shloka. In this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying, how should a student approach the teacher? Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. So here we see how a student should approach a teacher. And what kind of a teacher? A jnani, tattvadarshinaha, who has seen the essence. So when the teacher is of the highest standards, who is a jnani and who knows the essence of the subject, how should the student approach? So there are three things given in this shloka of how the student should approach. The first one is pranipatena. He should approach the teacher. That's the first thing. You must approach. That is why Lord Krishna waited for the whole first chapter and initial part of second chapter for Arjuna to accept the Shishya relationship. Shishyaste aham shadhimam tvam prapannam. I am your Shishya. That was Arjuna approaching Krishna. That's why the first step is pranipatena, which means to approach. The second quality is pariprashnena. You must ask questions. Don't sit there just like, listening. And then when teacher says, do you have any questions? No questions. So which means sometimes teacher does not know whether the student has understood everything or has understood nothing. Only when the student asks question, the teacher knows what is the level of understanding of the student and he is willing to explain more. So in this way, pariprashnena, a student should always ask questions which are worded in a humble way, in a polite way, with the interest of understanding, not with the interest of challenging the teacher or arguing with the teacher, not in an argumentative mood, but in a humble and submissive mood. And the third thing, which is most important, is sevaya. One should do seva to the teacher. It's not just about taking everything from the teacher. Give me the knowledge, give me the knowledge. One must give something back to the teacher as well. Sevaya, one must offer seva, and seva can be done in many ways. So, this is the duty of the student towards the teacher, to offer service to the teacher. And then what does the teacher do? Upadekshanti te jnanam. They give jnana, they give upadesh to the student. So then the teacher opens the heart and gives everything that he has or she has and gives it to the student, because they are an expert teacher. They are jnanis and they have tattva darshinaha. They have seen the truth. So like this, in the whole of Bhagavad Gita, in fact, Arjuna is asking a lot of questions. A lot of questions. In fact, whole of Bhagavad Gita is nothing but question answer session between Arjuna and Krishna. And so many questions Arjuna asks. And every single question Lord Krishna answers perfectly. Not only Arjuna asks questions, but he asks Krishna for demonstration as well. Demo, live demo. You know how Arjuna asks for demonstration? In the 11th chapter, we will go to the 11th chapter, which is known as, many of you might have read Bhagavad Gita. It is known as the Vishwarupa Yoga. So the universal form, as it is known as. So in the 4th verse of the 11th chapter, chapter 11, by the way, is titled as the universal form or the Vishwarupa form. Let me see if I can find a picture of the Krishna universal form. Yes, here is a nice picture. You might have seen this picture many times, where Lord Krishna shows his universal form to Arjuna. So in this chapter, 11th chapter, 4th verse, Arjuna is asking, if you think that I am able to behold your cosmic form, your universal form, O my Lord, O Master of the mystic power, kindly show me that unlimited universal self. What does he say? Yogeshwara tato me tvam darshayatmanam avyayam. So please show me, give me a darshan of your universal form. So Arjuna is asking for a demo. And Lord Krishna says, sure, I will give you a demo. But for this demo, we have to go in the lab. And when you all know, when you go in the lab, you have to wear lab coat. You cannot just go with your normal clothes. So you have to go in proper attire, because the lab is dangerous. So you must wear proper protective gear, and Krishna gives proper protective gear to Arjuna. Here, Lord Krishna says that you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence. This is the Divya Chakshu. I will give you Divyam Dadamite Chakshushaha. Pashyame Yogamaishwaram. I am going to give you Divya Chakshu. I am going to give you the telescope or microscope using which you can see what you are asking. So Lord Krishna is giving a demo to the student. Student has asked for something. Lord Krishna says, sure. So a teacher is one who answers all questions, whether they are theory or demo or practical questions. All questions are answered, and he is able to give the proper attire, the proper gear, the proper protection, whatever is needed for the student to get the answer. So in this case, he is giving divine eyes, Divya Chakshu, so that he can see the Yogam Aishwaram, the universal form of Sri Krishna. Later on, now Arjuna is not satisfied by just seeing the universal form, which I showed here. There is also must be other pictures. Yes, this one is a nice picture. Here, after seeing the universal form, Arjuna asks Lord Krishna to show the Chaturbhuja form, the four-handed form of Lord Vishnu, because Vishnu and Krishna are no different. They are the same. So Arjuna says, please show me your four-handed form, the Chaturbhuja form. And that he asks in the 46th verse. After he is not yet satisfied, he wants to see more. He saw one demo, he wants to see another demo. So he says here, 46th verse, let me open in my book. Yeah. So what does he say here? Kiritinam gadinam chakrahasta ichhami tvam drashtum aham tathaiva tanaiva rupena chaturbhujena sahasrabaho bhava vishwamurte. So he says that, O universal form, 1,000-armed form. In the universal form, there were 1,000 arms. Now I wish to see you in your four-armed form, your Chaturbhujena, four-armed form, which is the form of Lord Vishnu, with helmeted head, club, wheel, conch, and lotus flower, Shankh, Chakra, Gada, Padma in your hands. I want to see you in that form. So then Lord Krishna says, okay, I will show you that form. So here in that picture, then Lord Krishna shows him the Narayana or the Vishnu form as well. So Lord Krishna is the perfect teacher because he does not leave any question unanswered of the student. He is so expert, he can answer all the questions. But now we will just go towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Lot more question answer sessions or question answers happen. And then towards the end, Lord Krishna asks Arjuna, okay, I have told you everything. Now I have told you whatever your questions are, I have answered. If you have more questions, you can ask more. But then Arjuna is done. He says, I am done with all my questions. What does Lord Krishna say? Then he does not say, okay, now you must fight. I have spent so much time telling you what to do. Now you have to do what I am saying. No, he does not say that. He still gives a choice to Arjuna. Now do whatever you want to do. My job was only to give you the knowledge that you asked. But the teacher never demands anything back from the student. It is the student's duty to do seva to the teacher, but teacher should never demand anything. Teacher leaves the student free. The best teacher leaves the student free to do whatever the student wants. No force, no pressure. So, of course, the guidance is there. Proper guidance is always there. But the final choice belongs to the student. So, here we see in the 18th chapter, in the 63rd verse, towards the very end. 18th chapter is the last chapter, and 63rd verse is towards the end of the last chapter. So here, Lord Krishna is saying, Itite jnanam akyatam guhyat guhyataram maya vimrishaityaddeshana yathechhasi tatha kuru. So, in the last sentence, Lord Krishna is saying, Yatha ichhasi tatha kuru, which means that do as you desire, or the translation is, do what you wish to do. Lord Krishna is not holding Arjuna's, is not tying his hands, because from the beginning, Lord Krishna wants Arjuna to fight the war. Arjuna is the one who does not want to fight. So after narrating or giving the whole Gyan of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna could have very well told Arjuna that now you must do what I have told you. I have spent so much time telling you what to do. So what is the point if you disobey my instructions? No, the teacher never forces the student or never expects any particular return from the student. It is the student's duty to assimilate the knowledge, to understand the knowledge, and to apply it in the proper way. Whatever instructions are there are within the knowledge that the teacher has given. After that, the teacher leaves the student free to do whatever he wants. So this is another great characteristic that we see here of a teacher. So we saw so many characteristics. What should the student do? What should the teacher do? What is the student's nature? What is the teacher's nature? What should be the qualifications of the student? What should be the qualifications of the teacher? And then finally, we see when a sincere student follows all the instructions of the teacher, understands and internalizes the knowledge, what after that, what is the highest duty of the student? What is the highest duty of the student? Think about it. The highest duty of the student, of course, many of you will say to follow the instructions, to follow the teachings. No, that is of course there. Of course, you must follow the teachings. More than that, there is another higher duty for the best student. The highest duty of the best student is to become a teacher, is to teach others. Otherwise, if the best teacher is going to teach the students and all the students just go and use the knowledge and be happy, who will teach the next generation? So the best students must become teachers. And Lord Krishna says the same thing here in chapter 18, verse numbers 68 and 69. 68, what does he say? For one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. So what Lord Krishna is saying, that one must, after you have understood it, go explain it to others. Then I will be most happy. You will come back to me. You will get moksha. So by going to the teacher, learning the most sacred knowledge, one should not keep it with himself. One should explain it, share it with others. That makes the teacher most happy. Where do we learn that? In the next verse. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he. Than he means than who explains this to others. Nor will there ever be one more dear. That means the most dear student of this teacher is one who becomes a teacher and passes this information, this knowledge forward to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation. And this system is known as the Parampara system. Guru, Shishya. Now we are going from Sambandha to a more expansive concept. It is not just the Sambandha between Guru and Shishya. It is the Guru Shishya Parampara. Parampara means a whole chain. Guru, then Shishya. Then Shishya becomes Guru and has another Shishya. Then Shishya becomes Guru, has another Shishya. Like this knowledge keeps going from generation to generation to generation. So we will see that is Lord Krishna explained this early on itself in the 4th chapter, 2nd verse. Lord Krishna says that this evam parampara praptim imam rajarshayo viduhu sakaleneha mahata yogo nashtaha parampara. That this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, or for that matter, any knowledge, Bhagavad Gita is the highest knowledge, but even any form of knowledge needs to be received through the chain of disciplic succession, parampara. Parampara means disciplic succession, you see here. Parampara means student becomes the teacher and then gives it to the next generation of students. And the saintly kings understood in that way. So the kings and other Raja Rishis, etc., they all get this knowledge in this way. Sometimes that chain gets broken. And when that chain gets broken, the knowledge is lost. So if you do not want the knowledge to be lost, one must maintain this chain. So one of the duties of the teacher and student both is to make sure that the parampara keeps going on. The parampara should never be lost. It is the teacher's duty within a group of students to identify the best students and inspire them to become teachers. These days, unfortunately, teachers has become the sort of a very, not highly respected position. It is said that nobody who ever gets a job anywhere else becomes a teacher. That is such a pathetic situation. Teachers are like Brahmanas. That is the highest duty. First, one should try to become a teacher. The best student should, the first thing is to become a teacher. Then if you cannot become a teacher, go do something else. Because for the topmost student, the highest duty is to take the job of teaching others, so that this parampara is not broken. So it is the duty of the teachers to groom the next generation of teachers. And it is the duty of the students to consider teaching as a very sacred thing, as something that is highly in need, highly respected. It's a very respected position. I live in America, and in America, the education system, at least in the schools, not in the universities. American universities are very famous, like Harvard University, Stanford University. All these are very famous universities, but the school education is considered very mediocre. It's not considered the one of the best in the world. So there was a research done as to which countries have the best school system of education. And in that survey, it was discovered that the topmost countries, the countries at the top whose school system means from kindergarten to 12th, that school system, the topmost countries are the Scandinavian countries, which means Sweden, Norway, and Finland. These are considered, they have the highest ratings. And when they figured out why these Scandinavian countries have the highest rating, the discovery was that the teachers are paid highest. Teaching profession gets paid the most. So the topmost, so that is just a way of the government is doing the right thing. It's putting the money in the right place. By paying, of course, these days everything is being driven by pay. In earlier times, Brahmanas did not become Brahman for a pay. They did it because they were interested in carrying on the parampara. In today's world, money is, money speaks the highest. Everybody wants money, 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 money. So anyway, in those countries, they pay teachers the highest salary. So the topmost PhDs who graduate from the universities with, the best students, they become elementary school teachers. They teach first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. And then, because the salary of those is the highest, which means the government is doing the right thing, because that is when the students gain the most knowledge. The younger you are, the more absorbent your brain is, the more you can absorb. And if the best students are becoming the teachers, they will make the next generation of students better and better and better. And that's why those countries have the highest ratings in terms of the education system. So no wonder they are doing so much better. Here, you see all the kids, they are just playing video games, he's eating ice creams and just, wasting the time. And I know that, the teaching profession is not very highly paid. People become teachers, and as soon as they get a better job, they leave. And the teaching profession is filled up by those who are not able to find any other job. So, okay, I don't have anything to do, let me go teach. I will get some money. So that is really not the right way, and not the right motivation, not the right incentive. So one must, both the government, the teachers, the whole system should be focused around education, because education is the place where our next generation is being formed. And if we can form the next generation in the right way, then our country, the whole world will prosper very nicely. So that is what I wanted to share with you. I will stop at this point and see if there are any comments or any questions, anything anybody would like to say.
Dear participants, who are all willing to ask the question, can ask.
Anybody has any questions?
No, sir.
Okay.
You can ask your question.
So let me ask a question then. If you don't have a question, I can ask a question. So all of you can raise your hand in Zoom, I assume, or how to raise your hand. How many of you have had some exposure or have some little understanding of Bhagavad Gita? You can raise your hand, and I just want to know. There is an icon by which you can click and you can raise your hand.
So in case of difficult situation, how to handle problem and how to control or regulate emotions?
Very nice question. So problems are of many kinds. Many kinds of problems are there in the world. This world is a place where problems outnumber the solutions, because every solution comes with more problems, isn't it? We may solve a problem, but we are always in the mode of looking for the next solution, next solution, next solution. But Bhagavad Gita says there are 4 fundamental problems from which all other problems arise. Every problem in this world is a derivative of the topmost 4 problems. What are those 4 problems? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. These are the 4 problems. Janma means birth. First of all, we are in this world. We took birth in this world, which is known in Bhagavad Gita as Dukkhalayam. It is a place of dukkha, because the problems outnumber the solutions. That is Janma. First of all, we are here in this Dukkhalaya. That's the first problem. Second problem is death, Mrityu, Janma Mrityu. Isn't that a problem? Mrityu. Everybody is afraid of death. Then Jara. Jara means old age. Everybody wants to stay young. Old age is very problematic. Go ask any old person, they will say this old age is very problematic. And the fourth one is Vyadhi. Vyadhi means disease. So imagine if you don't have to die, if you don't have to be old, and if you are guaranteed not to have a disease, really, doesn't that take away all your problems? But these are the four main problems. Now there can be any kind of problems. Oh, I lost my job. I don't have enough money. What do you mean you don't have money? Ultimately, it comes down to roti, kapda, makan, which means I should have a shelter on top of my head. I should get something to eat, and I should be able to protect myself. So fundamentally, it comes down to the root problems being Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. And Bhagavad Gita says that by applying the principles of Bhagavad Gita, you can get rid of all these problems, including Mrityu. Even the problem of Mrityu can be solved by applying the principles of Bhagavad Gita. So I will leave you with one simple solution, very simple solution, with which you can try to start solving your problems. The topmost candidate that you can address in solving your problems is removing your expectations from other people, removing your attachments to other people. When you lower your expectations or remove any expectations from others, nobody will be able to hurt you. When you don't expect anything, you won't be hurt at all. 50% of people's problems are given by other people. And those problems are not physical problems. They are problems of the mind, of their relationships. And when the expectations are low, then those problems don't exist. So managing one's expectations is a very, very crucial way of taking care of a whole category of problems in one's life. So I hope that was helpful. For more, please do a study of Bhagavad Gita, and you will see that there are thousands of solutions to all kinds of problems in one's life.
So when we want to move to spiritual environment like chanting and other things, we get a lot of disturbances. Is it our mind made, or is it obstructing us? How to overcome that?
Very nice question. How to overcome disturbances when following or trying to apply the Bhagavad Gita? That is the question. So, initially, first of all, we have been so accustomed to simply following our mind. Do whatever the mind says. Mind says, I want to eat more. So you eat more, then people become fat. Mind says, I want to become angry at this person. So you become angry. There is no control of the mind. So since we have been so much accustomed to blindly follow the desires of the mind, man says, ye karo, wo karo, do this, do that, we keep doing that. Mind is controlling us. We have no practice. We have no ability. We have no tools to control the mind. That is the fundamental problem which you are raising. To solve it, we must start by practice. Abhyas. So many places in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks about the word abhyas. Slowly, one must try to control the mind. Slowly. So when you are talking about doing some sadhana, doing some spiritual practice, start with 10 minutes in a day. Don't try to do it for 4 hours in a day. Then you will see that in 4 hours, 3 hours and 45 minutes, the mind was uncontrolled. Only it was controlled for a little bit of time. So you start slow, start small, and keep building up. Just like when you go to, like, let's say you want to become fit, you start going to the gym. On the first day, let's say you are trying to run on the treadmill. How long can you run on the treadmill? 5 minutes. The best athletes can run for 1 hour on the treadmill. You cannot run for 1 hour on the first day. You can run 5 minutes. So what you should do, start with 5 minutes. Do that for 1 week. Then increase it to 10 minutes. Like that, if you keep on doing your practice, one day you will be able to do like the experts. So don't try to control the mind overnight, and don't get dejected if you are unable to control the mind. Start small, be determined, be dedicated, be committed, and keep making progress. Don't lose or don't be disappointed.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
This is Almasi from second MCOM, sir. How should I, as a student, set upliftment in life?
The audio was not clear. How should, as a student,
Set upliftment in my life.
how should, as a student, you fit upliftment, you said?
Yes, sir.
So how should a student get uplift in the life?
So by being a good student. As a student, your foremost duty is a student. So I hope that you are a student because you wanted to be a student. Nobody forced you to be a student. But if that internal desire was yours to be a student, then be the best student you can. And in today's talk, we discussed all the ways of how a good student behaves. What are the characteristics? What is the nature of the best student like Arjuna? So be the best student you can. I'm sure there is a lot of knowledge being shared in the college where you are about your profession. Be the best student, and then you will get all the benefits of that knowledge. And that will be a very uplifting journey, or a very uplifting course in your life. If by a chance you are not here by your choice, or even if you came here but you realized that this is not what I really want to do, follow your heart. What do you really want to do? Find something meaningful and useful to do in your life, and do it with dedication. Whatever you do, do it with dedication, but do something meaningful and useful. One cannot say, oh, I will just sit in front of TV and watch TV every day. That is what I really want to do, because that is not meaningful or useful. But find something that really calls you, which adds meaning to your life, which gives a purpose to your life. Find something like that and follow it fully. Give it all you have. And then you will see that there is no problem regarding upliftment. The only problem you will have is there is too much upliftment, which is a very nice problem to have.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. I'm Shushmita, second MCOM. Sir, my question is how to strengthen myself, sir?
How to strengthen yourself?
Yes, sir.
As they say, I'll just give a small example. The pen is mightier than the sword, they said, right? The pen is mightier than the sword, which means the power of the pen is higher than the power of the sword. The pen is nothing but a tool to express what is in your mind. Sword can express the power of your hands. How strong you are, then you can run the sword like this. The pen is an expression of your mind. But there is something even stronger than your hands, even stronger than your mind, which is your soul. So if you want to strengthen yourself, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita are to strengthen the soul. That is the highest thing. When your soul becomes strong, then the mind will automatically become strong. And when the mind is strong, everything about you, your whole life is strong. And the answer to strengthening the soul again goes back to developing a connection, finding and developing that spiritual connection in our life. What does the soul want to connect to? And typically the answer is the soul wants to connect to God, because the soul is a part and parcel of God. And God may have different meanings for different people. So you must find what calls your soul. What I would suggest is that if you really are looking for spiritual strength, give Bhagavad Gita a try. It's not a very thick book. It's just, this thick, this much thick. Read Bhagavad Gita, and I'm sure you will understand how to strengthen your soul. Once the soul is strong, the mind is strong. When the mind is strong, the body is also strong. So it is all about the body, mind, and soul. There is no point in just strengthening the body. They say that you must also strengthen the mind. But Bhagavad Gita says there is no point in just strengthening the body and the mind. One must strengthen the soul. So that is the real answer. Strengthen your soul, and that is the best form of strength. If not, strengthen your mind. Okay. Does that
Thank you,
answer?
sir.
Somebody is writing on the chat, do you know Tamil? No, I don't know Tamil. Sorry. Okay. Anything else? That was very nice set of questions. And I really enjoyed answering those questions. I really enjoyed being here. So I think we can end here, if that's okay. Yes, somebody raised their hand. Did you have a question or a comment?
Success Kavya, come out with your question.
Yes, sir. Excuse me, my doubt is, how can we strengthen our souls?
How can we strengthen our souls? I think that was the question. So the process of strengthening the soul is first to find the connection of the soul to its source. The soul is very, very tiny. Just like you must have seen in some movies, there are all these drones, but they're all connected to the mothership, and they get the power from the mothership. If that connection is cut, then the connection is lost. So as long as the soul is connected to its source of strength, it remains strong. It keeps getting the energy from the source. And that source of the soul, according to Bhagavad Gita, is God himself. So one must try to find that connection with God. And a good place to start finding that connection is to read the Bhagavad Gita. So, like I said, if you want to strengthen your soul, give Bhagavad Gita a try. Read it. That would be the starting step to find the strength or the process of strengthening the soul. The starting step.
Anyone else would like to ask questions or need clarification? Okay, thank you. I now request our Madam Principal to address the gathering and thank our resource person.
Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi. It's indeed a very momentous occasion for us that sir is here amidst all his busy schedules to address our children. And Dr. Lakshmi has taken the right move at the right time when children are in a difficult situation around them due to corona and other family issues around them. And they are emotionally down. Not only the children, the faculty and whoever it is, all of us are down with our thoughts, minds, and our difficulties. So he has given a excellent talk on addressing these emotional challenges faced by all of us. So, sir, it was really indeed a very, very useful session, thought-provoking session, and we will definitely try to get better with our emotions, and hope we will have some more sessions with such sir in future also. And I hope Dr. Lakshmi also will take effective measures to have him here for some more sessions with us, so that we could have a complete completeness over the emotional control. I really thank you very much, sir, from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of my institution, on behalf of all the faculty, and on behalf of all the children. I wish to thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
inviting me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And I just want to say that, yes, it has been a very, very hard time for so many people, especially due to this deadly disease. So please try to keep your minds and hearts strong, and please try to invest some time in the spiritual direction. There is a lot of wonderful knowledge and enlightenment awaiting all of you. So a lot of strength, a lot of support is available through this spiritual knowledge. So please make use of that. And thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to come again whenever you would like.
Thank you very much, sir. We are really blessed today, and for your support also. At this juncture, I have to thank Gujan Madam, sir's wife, Gujan Tiwari Goyal, for all the effort she has taken, and she was continuously in touch with me. And once I put the matter in the WhatsApp, she immediately took it very seriously and had supported me to a very great extent. So my special thanks to Gujan Tiwari Goyal Madam also. So special thanks to you. You have created an interest in Bhagavad Gita by bringing out the relationship between Acharya and that of a Sishya in a very nice manner with quoting the verses and the chapters. Thank you very much, and thank you for your kindness to support us in future also. Extremely thankful, sir. It is really a blessing of Krishna. So at this juncture, I like to thank Krishna also by saying Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you all the participants. Please take sir's matter in a very serious manner and strengthen your relationship with everyone. Need not be only teachers, but also with everyone. Try to solve all your problems, financial, non-financial, health-related issues, everything through the guidance that sir has taken. Strengthen your relationship and move your soul towards Lord Almighty. Whatever may be the Lord you like to take up, strengthen your relationship, and let us all ensure a bright future for every one of us and everyone around us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Participants, just fill the forms, feedback form that has been posted in the chat.